Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my one prospect expert here, Dayton Reimer. Peter is away, and it's funny, we switched from last week. I had Peter here, and now we've got Dayton. We'll get back together eventually here, but Dayton, how's it going?
It's good. Yeah. Yeah, sad that it's not the full reunion again, but I can wait. It'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll probably get next week.
Yeah. Hopefully.
But yeah, hopefully. If nothing else happens. But we're gonna continue our series, our prospect pool overview series that we started about a month ago, I think. And we kind of went on and off as we covered the draft, but we're not going to repeat the other teams, but we're going to keep going and start and I guess restart with the Chicago Blackhawks and go from the top of the draft on, skipping the teams we have already gone through. But we're going to go with the Chicago Blackhawks. They had a really strong 2024 draft, a lot of really good names, a lot of names we've talked about on this show a few times. But we're just going to go through it and not go too deep into some of them because we have talked about a lot of these guys already. But obviously, Blackhawks went Artem Levshunov with their first pick in the first round and had 3 first-round picks. We already know pretty much everything you need to know about Artem Levshunov, one of the best defenders in the draft and probably, arguably, the best, I guess, depending on who you talk to. And then they went Sasha Boisvert and Marek Vanacker. Again, we've talked about Boisvert quite a bit. So, Dayton, what do you think about Marek Vanacker, their third first-round pick? Because that's a guy we probably haven't really talked about on this show in a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid selection by them. It was a little higher ranked than I had him. I had him as an early second rounder, but there was a lot of um like really interesting skills. Actually, I might have moved him into the first round. I can't remember now. It's been a minute. Um, my mind has been elsewhere lately.
Yeah.
I just got back from vacation. That's why I was not around last time. But no, Vanacker has, or is it Vanacker?
Vanacker, I think it's Vanacker.
I think it's Vanacker. Yeah,
Yeah.
want to make sure I pronounce that right. Yeah, lots of really interesting skills in his game. I really liked what I saw, what I watched. Um, he had a very good season with the Brantford Bulldogs, 82 points, 36 goals, pretty decent playoffs too. Not so good at the under 18s, just a goal, but that he was playing a depth role, so it was tough to shine. Yeah, really solid pick at 27. I don't think there was a lot of guys that they could have got better. He's a really smart player. I like how he thinks about the game and sort of, takes control. And yeah, he's got some very interesting upside. I'm interested to see kind of how he pans out for a late first round pick. You can never really be 100% sure of how those work out, but that one's a solid one for the Blackhawks. I liked it.
Yeah. Uh, I say Boisvert, we already know, great two-way player. I think he's going to end up being a really good, maybe middle six guy for the Blackhawks down the road. We're going to talk a few about the other top prospects as we go through the show here that they're going to end up having down the road. But yeah, 3 first-round picks and 3 more solid prospects that are going to be adding to their pool. Moving into the next round, the second round, they added, or third round, they didn't have a second round pick, but 3 third round picks and 3 really solid guys getting there too. John Mustard, who we've talked about a lot so far, AJ Spilassi, and Jack Pridham. I'll talk about Spilassi because I did his prospect profile. I'm really impressed. I actually wasn't sure where he was going to go in the draft, actually. Third round pick, I kind of projected him to be around there. Just got his profile up here. Again, it's been a minute since I wrote it. Just seeing where I actually had him going. And I'm saying that I said third round. So there you go. I actually was pretty really right. I said third or fourth round, probably 60 to 70 range. Guess where he went? 72. I was I kind of ranked him a little higher. But, really solid guy that could potentially be a bit of a steal in the third round. I mean, he wasn't really ranked a lot. Only Elite Prospects had him ranked at 70th. NHL Central Scouting at 72nd amongst North American skaters. But, what was interesting about him going through it is he actually had a chance of not going into hockey. He was actually a highly ranked NCAA top recruit for not hockey, football.
Hmm.
And he's a big guy. He's 6'2", 195, and was one of the higher guys that for football could have gone the football route, but chose hockey and went to the Windsor Spitfires and ended up playing a pretty good energy role with them last season. And I'm actually excited about his upside because he's really quick, very physical forward, and has a bit of a leadership already. Had an alternate, I had an A on his jersey this year for the Spitfires, so has that going about him. He's got great work ethic, great motor. Um, Basically the players I like. That's why I write some of these players' profiles because I like what they bring. And one thing he's going to bring is that work ethic and that high motor, which I'm really excited to see what he can do in the NHL at some point. I don't know, probably a third, fourth liner. And you need those guys in your lineup, as we see in the playoffs. Those are the guys that really shine. And I think he could end up being a really good pick down the road. So I like that pick for the Blackhawks in the third round. Jack Pridham, Dayton, what do you think about him? He went 92nd. I know Peter was really high on him and actually wrote his profile, I believe. And of course, he was high on John Mustard. So I think he really probably really likes the Blackhawks draft. But what do you think about Pridham there?
Yeah, I think Pridham was a solid pick by them. He, unlike Mustard, who sort of fell into their lap at the third round, Pridham was pretty much expected to go in the late third round by most rankings. Like you said, Peter was a little higher on him than most, but yeah, really solid season with the BCHL. Little under a point per game, but in the playoffs he took off. He's got some decent size. He's really fast. Yeah, could be a very solid pick. He's going to the Boston University for next season. So that's a really good place for someone who, can develop that more two-way game. College is really good for that. So he's a bit of a project, but no, I think that's another, like you said, a really solid pick for the Blackhawks. They had a really good draft with the picks that they have, despite not having a second rounder. I think, yeah, they nailed the Mustard pick. He's a really intriguing player out of the USHL. Spalacy, another good one. Pridham, yeah, follows that. Is another solid forward that can add to that growing cohort for the Blackhawks that they have, just like high end offensive guys who, do have some other skills as well.
Mhm. Well, high energy too. I think
Yeah.
John Mustard, another one, very high motor, and seemed to like those types of players going down the road here. And that's something again you need in the playoffs and even during the regular season. You need those guys to be those bottom six energy guys to complement those highly skilled, and they already have quite a few of those guys too. So yeah, very very good picks. Um, Jumping to the fifth round, they had one fifth round pick, and they chose Joel Svensson, Swede. I don't know. I'm not really familiar with him. Just looking at some of his scouting reports here, great skater, and great awareness, two of his strongest attributes. I don't know, Dayton, have you seen Joel Svensson? Anything of him you want to kind of add there?
Yeah, I'm probably in a little bit of the same boat as you. Don't know a bunch about him. He's a forward, a left winger primarily. He's got decent size at 6'1", 185, according to Elite Prospects. Um, yeah, a bit more of a two-way player with the Vaisho, something like that.
I show, yeah.
He was playing with the under 20 team in the SHL. With them, he had 33 points in 25 games, 24 of which were goals. So he's got a really good shot. He actually led their team in goals, despite playing almost half as much as some of their top guys, namely Leo Saul and Millennius. So he's got some offensive upside. I think there is a lot of work to do, as you'd expect with a fifth round pick. But he did manage to sneak into 7 games with the SHL. So he does have some pro experience already, which is promising, and that's probably where he'll be for the next couple of seasons, I would expect, as he sort of develops that more NHL ready game.
Yeah, I mean, again, sixth round pick. It's not or fifth. What was I? Geez, I jumped. Yeah, fifth. Fifth round pick. I mean, sometimes these guys pan out, sometimes they don't, and you take a shot, and he could potentially be good for them too. Final pick, they had Ty Henry in the sixth round, 163rd overall. This was a pretty good pick. I mean, this is a guy that played Erie Otters, had a pretty good season for them. He had, well, I mean, he's not an offensive defenseman. He had 7 assists in 54 games. He's more that more defensive defenseman, a pretty good, physicality, good mobility, it's like that. You want to add anything about Ty Henry? I mean, he's 6'4", so he's a pretty big defenseman, left-hand shot. I Again, not a. If you just look at the stat sheet, you're saying, well, he's not much of a defenseman, but scoring's not always the biggest thing you're looking at.
Yeah, he hasn't scored a goal since joining the OHL last season or 2 seasons ago, 22-23, which is, something that you might take into account. It's probably why he's a sixth round pick. But I did actually watch him a little bit. Um, Back a couple of months ago, I was checking in on all of the prospects who were playing in the CHL playoffs. And of course, the Erie Otters had a series or two. Can't remember exactly, but that led me to watching Ty Henry, and he looked really smart on defense. He was calm, he was smart. He kind of reminded me of the way Noah Warren plays, who was a kind of a surprise invite to the World Juniors in 2024. I didn't expect Noah Warren to get that invite, and all of a sudden he was there, and he played pretty solid. He's just a big defensive, physical defenseman who can make really smart plays. He doesn't make mistakes, um, at least not very frequently. He can be relied on to be sort of that depth guy, and that's what Erie seemed to do. So I like him as a late round pick. I think that's a great grab by Chicago. So hopefully he pans out, and hopefully he gets his first goal next season.
Yeah. Well, it
That'd be
seems
great.
like he's more of that focuses more on the defensive side, um, more than offense. I mean, he's a good skater, so I mean that could help him in the NHL if he does make it that far. Because if you are primarily defense, you've got to be a good skater. You're not going to be able to be doing much.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, with all the skill that's in the NHL now, and most guys are good skaters, you've got to at least have that in your back pocket, and it seems like that's what he does have. So if he can maybe add a little bit more offense to his game, then maybe he'll make it. But he's got the size, he's got the skating, so that's two things that are already going for him.
Mhm.
One note, his dad was played in the CFL, Andrew Henry, retired CFL player. So that's pretty cool to see. So he's got some athletic genes. So that's it seems like that's again one of his strengths too. All right. That was the Blackhawks 2024 draft. Now let's move into their top five prospects. Now, some of these guys could be already in there. So I'll give you my top five, and it matches with some of the others that I've kind of looked around. Artem Levshunov, of course, leading the way right now. Of course, Kevin Korchinski, Connor Bedard are not part of this list anymore. They've graduated. They played a lot of the season last year, so they're not part of this list. Number two for me, Oliver Moore. Three, Frank Nazar. Four, Sasha Boisvert. And five, Sam Rinzel. Dayton, who's your top five? Is it pretty similar or you got some changes there?
Yeah, that's pretty similar. I might change Rinzel for like Boisvert or Vanacker. I think those guys are all kind of in this really good second tier, if you want to call it that. Um, yeah. Other than that, that's pretty much the only difference I would note. The newcomers are maybe more interesting than the old guys. But
Yeah, I mean, the top three I think are pretty set. I mean,
yeah, those are
Lachunov,
pretty
Moore, Nazar. I
unanimous.
mean, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with those that top three. That beyond that is where it kind of gets depends on your opinion of where these guys sit. So, but it's pretty good, pretty solid top five. Um, for the Blackhawks. I mean, Lev Shunov may graduate this list next year because he may play an entire season next season or this season for the
Mhm.
Blackhawks, depending on if he decides to go back to the NCAA. I don't know. Haven't heard anything of that's for sure if he's coming to the NHL or not. He has signed his ELC.
Yeah. So I think that means he's ineligible
Probably.
to
That's
return.
right. When they sign ELCs there. He'll be playing. So it depends on if it'll be in the NHL full time or not. We'll see. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
Look at this.
that's yeah. I mean, Lev
Sorry.
Shunov is. I think he's NHL ready. Just watching him already, and it seems like the Blackhawks think the same by signing him already, and he obviously thinks so too.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk about some noteworthy forward prospects. We're going to go forward, defense, and goalies, and outside of the top five because I mean we've talked about a lot about these. Unless you want to, I mean you can talk about some of the top five because there are some really good guys in here. So I will say you can talk about some of the top five. Dayton, who do you got? Because there's some exciting names we probably should be talking about.
Mhm. Um, Nick Lardis is a really interesting prospect that they have. He was a third round pick last season in 2023. A little undersized at 5'11, 165, but he made his AHL debut this year after putting up 50 points in 37 games, 29 goals. So he's got some real skill. And I mean, we harp on don't overlook the little guys so much on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I think this is one who very much shouldn't be. He's very good at what he does, and I think could become an impact forward in the NHL. He's still a little bit of ways, of course, but he's one that kind of sticks out to me as that next tier of top prospects with the Blackhawks. Another guy I really like is Martin Misiak. He doesn't quite have that offensive upside, I think, that Lardis does. A little bigger, and a little bit more strong on defense. He's a good forechecker. He has a little bit more of that strength, and he still has like a really good shot. He had 23 goals with the Erie Otters in 60 games this season, and then put up 3 assists in 5 games at the World Juniors for Slovakia. So he is also looking to make his AHL kind of rookie season this coming year, and I think he could be a really strong addition for them, kind of that middle six guy who can complement a developing roster like the Blackhawks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add a couple names. Landon Slaggert, I've liked him since they drafted him, and he debuted in the NHL this past season after coming over from the University of Notre Dame. He had 20 goals in his last season there. Played 16 games for the Blackhawks, had 4 points, scored his first NHL goal. One thing I love about him, again, his high motor, his physicality, and ability to just be that big force out there. In the NHL, we'll see if he can translate that from the NCAA and his previous experience with you at United States Development League. But it's, I think one thing with him is he's going to be able to be that good third, fourth line guy. I don't think he has really high upside as a top six forward, but a biggest thing that I think he brings is that physicality and just he's not afraid of hitting someone and he's a pretty good skater too. And I've really liked Slaggert since 2020 when he was drafted. And another guy I'll throw it again. I mean, Frank Nazar, you can't. He already has shown. I mean, he played in the NHL very limited games, but he scored in his first game, which is always I love seeing that when you're scoring your first NHL game. And I think he's going to end up being a high end, compliment to the Connor Bedard, to Oliver Moore, those types of guys, and end up being part of that. Again, the forward group that they got coming up. The Blackhawks are going to end up icing a very highly skilled top six once everyone's at their prime because Nazar, Moore, Bedard. I mean, that there those three right there. You're looking at a pretty high end young core moving forward. And Nazar, I really like his game. Very skilled, very um, you know, potentially be a 70, 80 point guy uh, down the road. So I like Nazar. I like Slaggert. I think obviously two very different players, but I think end up being pretty good for this upcoming young wave that the Blackhawks have coming over here. All right, defense. I Who do you got kind of highlighted apart from Lev Shunov because we all know he's really good.
Yes, yeah, Levshunov was, I think, the perfect pick for that, and a lot of us called it, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I really like Landon Slaggert. I think he showed a lot of skill last year in his rookie season in the AHL. 37 points, which is always promising. He's also got that physicality that can be used well to support as more of a defensive defenseman. So he's got those two-way abilities that I think is really important if a team is going to be building very high offense. You want your defense to play a little bit more, stay at home. 6'4", 205. Yeah, he can do some damage with that. I also really like Nolan Allen. He was a
Mhm.
first round pick back in 2021, and he's taken his development a little slower than some of the others around his draft class. But he's a really skilled defenseman. He's a good skater. He has, just like really good agility when it comes to playing defense. Um, he also made his rookie debut in the AHL last season, not quite as offensively gifted, but yeah, got that more defensive mind, and I think that could develop very well into like maybe a second pairing guy in the future.
Yeah, I liked Nolan Allen. I mean, when he was drafted, everyone was like, "What? Why is he drafted in the first round? He's supposed to be in the third or fourth or something like that."
Yeah, maybe a bit of a
And
reach, but
bit of a reach, but he could end up being and he had a really good season in the AHL. Had pretty, I mean, offensively had 5 goals, which I mean, probably not expected for a guy that's mostly more leaning towards the defense. So I mean, but you need those guys in the NHL to complement those offensive defensemen. And, Lev Shunov being that good two-way guy, maybe he could pair with him down the road. And who knows? I mean, Nolan Allen could still end up being a very good, maybe not. I still don't think he should have been a first round pick, maybe a second. I mean, but that first rounder is whenever the first round pick, I'm like, I don't know if he's that high end of for a first round, but
no, I think I agree with you on that, but I still like that he is a solid defenseman. And when you are picking with a late first round pick, what is he, 31st overall
yeah, it
around
was
there?
really late. Yeah.
Yeah, you're taking it's basically a second round pick anyways. And so you make those big risks, those big swings on a guy that could be really good, or maybe he's just a depth guy. And I think that's both of those are fine. Could they have someone better? Sure. But I don't think they're upset with what Allen has become.
Yeah, especially that he's already in the AHL and he's doing well there. I mean, we'll see what he does once he gets to the NHL level. And I don't think he's made his no, he hasn't. He hasn't made his NHL debut yet. So I mean, who knows? This year, maybe. I mean, they have added a lot of defensemen in free agency, so maybe they won't have as many young guys um, on the blue line. So he may get some call ups, but we'll end up seeing what he looks like in the NHL. But I mean, so far so good. I mean, when you guys look good in the AHL, that's good sign that they could potentially be good down the road. And there's not a lot of guys that don't perform in the AHL that end up being good in the NHL. There are
Mhm.
guys that do ridiculously good in the AHL and aren't that good in the NHL, but they still end up being NHL players. It's just not as high end as what they show in the AHL. So Allen could still be a pretty good guy. All right, goaltending. We'll talk about the two guys because I mean they're two high end goaltenders. They got Drew Commesso and Adam Gajan. I I'll let you pick which one you want to talk about. Dayton, who do you want?
I'll take Guyan because I wrote his draft
There you go.
profile back when he was picked. So yeah, I really like Guyan. Of course, he jumped onto the scene in the World Juniors when he had a really strong showing in 2023, putting up a 936 save percentage in 4 games. Yeah, that's It's like Slovakia always gets these kind of dark horse goalies that just jump out and steal the show. And Guyan was that. And he came back and did pretty well again. Had more wins, just a slightly lower save percentage. His first season in the USHL after playing, actually, no, it was technically his second season. He had 6 games in his first year in 2023. But then last season, he played a full season, 43 games, uh, dipped a little bit for an 893 save percentage. So, a little bit more of a learning curve, development bump, if you want to call it that. But I still think he's got really high end skill. He's very athletic. He can make those big game saves that you need and just needs that time to develop that, I guess, intuition and getting ready for the pro level. He'll be at where is it here? University of Minnesota Duluth next season, which will be fantastic. I'm very excited to see how he does in the NCAA.
Yeah, they picked him. He was the first goaltender off the board last draft. So I mean, that was something that we didn't expect. And there were some other guys on that were supposedly going to go for before him, but he's showing that he was definitely worthy of being an early second round pick. And this way he's shown for Slovakian both times he's been for bit 3 times that he's bet the World Juniors.
Just twice.
Just twice. Yeah, I was right the first time. Should always go with my first instinct. Yeah, 2 times, and both times he was really good for Slovakia, one of the better goaltenders at the World Juniors, and yeah, and end up being drafted high in the second round. It's pretty good, and he's shown why he was. Drew Comesso, a little further along in his development. He is in the with the Rockford Ice Hogs. He came from Boston University last season. Didn't play any games in the AHL, but then played 38 this year, 2.65 goals against average, 906 save percentage, decent for the AHL in his first season. I'm always interested to see goaltenders move from the NCAA to the AHL because the workload's a lot different. I mean, he did play around the same, so they kind of kept it within that same range. He played 34 games for Boston University last season, 38 in the AHL, so the workload didn't change. I'm always interested if probably next season he'll see a little more of the net, but he's on the right track for a goaltender that is probably still their top goaltending prospect and could end up being a backup maybe this season, probably not because they did sign some guys to kind of go there, and of course they still have a veteran in net. They haven't moved on from Mrazek yet. So it looks like they want to keep the succession going. Don't want to throw a rookie goaltender into the fire to start, especially on a rebuilding team that defensively isn't the best yet. This season may be a little different with the additions they've made, but I think Comesso still has ended up working through his development pretty good. Pretty good AHL first season, and probably get a bulk of the starts next season or this coming season. So I think his development's on the right track. All right, to end here, we've got just pick an underrated prospect in their pool. I mean, probably mentioned maybe them already, but who is your most underrated?
Yeah, I'll throw in a name that we haven't talked about yet. I really like Colton Dach. He's sort of jumped up as a guy who can kind of do anything decently well. When he was picked in the second round, I thought that's a big reach. He is not an offensive guy. He was benefiting from the teammates around him, but then he made his World Junior appearance, and it's like, oh, this guy actually looks really solid. So he's just become this really adaptable, really well-rounded player. He's 6'4", almost 200 pounds, and of course, younger brother of Kirby Dach. I think he's never going to reach those offensive heights that Kirby's going to hopefully hit with the Canadians. But yeah, Colton Dach has just a really solid all-around ability. He had 27 points in 48 games in his rookie season in the AHL and could be in the NHL sooner than I think any of us expect, because he's just got, like I said, that really well-rounded ability. and fills a lot of holes that a lot of NHL teams need.
I'll just say mine because I already went through him. But AJ Spalassi, he's my underrated guy. I think a lot of people were underrating him in the draft, and looks like the Blackhawks didn't because they drafted him in the third round. But I think he's going to end up being a really good bottom six player that you're just going to want on your team in the playoffs. And he's already shown that he could be somewhat of that type of a player in the OHL. So we'll see when he does move to the AHL and moving forward. But I'm really excited to watch him, his development, and I think he's going to be underrated by a lot of people. And we'll see if he can pan out as that high energy, big physical forward in the bottom six that I like watching in the NHL. He's not undersized. He's not one of my undersized guys, but again, motor and high energy, and I like those players. All right, strengths. Quickly, what do you think the Blackhawks? What is their biggest strength as a prospect pool? I mean, overall, I think they're pretty balanced. I'm not, but what is their biggest strength overall here?
I think high end forwards, guys who can put the puck in the net with ease. Lots of guys who just have really, really high end scoring abilities. Like you just scroll through their depth chart, and it's like, oh, half these guys are snipers.
Yeah.
They're just really, really skilled at putting the puck in the net, and so that's not going to be an issue for the foreseeable future. That's for sure.
No, I agree. They're high end forwards, and they have a high end guy in every position. If you want to look at it, I mean, defense, of course, Lavshunov. At forward, they've got Nazar, Moore, Boisvert. I mean, go down the list, and then goaltending, they have a couple high end guys there too. So it's really you can't find a place where they don't have high end skill, and that's going to really benefit them down the road and to complement the guys they already have in the NHL, very young too. So, yeah, I agree with that. Weaknesses, maybe it'd be a little bit harder to pick one because they are pretty balanced. But what do you think is their biggest weakness?
I would say maybe defensive depth. Like they just added Levshunov. They have Korchinski. They've got a couple other guys. We mentioned Nolan Allen, Sam Renzel. They've got Alex Vlasic in the NHL. Really good guys. Beyond that, I'm not convinced that they have anybody who's like a top four guy. They have a lot of maybes,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure about it. So I think that if they wanted to address any issues, that would be the area. I don't think it's a big issue. Like we already talked about
Yeah.
several guys who are just like really good. But yeah, I think that's the one area that they could maybe boost up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Lev Shunov is going to be a top pairing defenseman in his prime, and they've got something set there. But yeah, I agree. I think they don't have as many for sure things for top four. I mean, Ethan Del Mastro could potentially be a top four. You got, Sam Renzel, of course, could be a top four. Uh, but they're not 100% yes, for sure they're going to be. So, yeah, I agree. I think they can maybe add a bit more there. It's not a high thing where it's like, yeah, we have to do that, but they could do it
Yeah.
and just continue boosting their defensive depth. And they did that with free agency, obviously, but that's not prospects. Uh, we'll see. We'll see where they are down next year and what they do in the draft. Where they are in the draft could potentially be different if they do uh, improve as much as everyone's kind of thinking they will with their additions in free agency. But yeah, I think the Blackhawks have a solid prospect pool and probably in the top five at this point. When the next farm rankings come out, they'd probably be in the top five. What do you think? Where do you place them right now?
Definitely in the conversation of top five. There's a lot of really strong prospect pools, but yeah, like 3 first round picks in this year, and I don't think they missed on any of them. That's a really good pool.
Yeah, I say top five. We'll see where Logan puts them. All right. Well, there's another episode of Prospect Corner. Thanks, Dayton, for joining me here, and we'll hopefully get Peter back on the show and make it a trio again next week. and go over his way too early 2025 rankings, which he's already put out. And yeah, we're already starting to think about the 2025 draft. Hlinka Gretzky's around the corner as well. August, beginning of August, that's going. And it's right here. Well, not here, but in Canada. Closer. We can actually watch it at reasonable times. And that's going to be good. But we'll see what happens there. And until our next episode, we'll see you on another episode of Prospect Corner.